Hello. Yeah, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Depends on where you are. Hello everyone. My name is Johnny. So thanks for joining our tonight's session. So this is our postgraduate festival. So tonight's session is our second session. So we already started the session. We already started the festival from today, and this morning we have first session. This is our second session. So we welcome our most welcome Professor Denis Morisset here. So tonight, Denis Morisset will bring you a very interesting topic and a master class. So as usual, Denis Morisset will start the master class, then followed by the Q&A sessions. And after that, I will do a very short introduction about our global luxury MBA program. So if you're interested to know more about the ISEC Business School and know more about the program, please stay with us. Okay, now Denis, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. The usual one. I think I have done almost 50 masterclasses since 2005 with ESSEC. I pioneered this concept. Most of them offline, but probably the last 10 were online. So today, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, the art of luxury collaborations, on which many of my students are also working in different classes. So the agenda will be the following. I will first share with you a little bit my vision of collaboration 360-degree. It's really a mindset, and it's not just about co-branding. Then we will see some best practices for luxury brands. And then I will take you to China to see how upcoming Chinese brands, premium luxury, are also using collaborations. And then I will finish with a toolbox I use in my courses that can be useful to evaluate the relevance of collaborations. And then we will have a Q&A session. So many of you were probably my past students or could be my future students. So I cannot hide. I had a long career so far, but not over at all. I am, first of all, a graduate of ESSEC Business School. I worked 25 years in the luxury industry, and I was quite early on a CEO for Pierre Balmain in the luxury shoes industry. I was president of a shoes company, being licensee of Kenzo, Givenchy. And I made my first trip to China in 1996. I was also a pioneer there, I think, managing to sell some of my French shoes in China back in 1997, almost too early. I started a second career in 2004 as a luxury marketing professor in ESSEC Business Schools, which is still my base, but I am also teaching in a lot of schools in Asia, in China, as a visiting professor, particularly in China, because I lived in China half time between 2011 and 2020. So besides ESSEC Singapore, I'm teaching in many schools in China, in the best cities, many of them partnering with ESSEC. And I'm sharing my time really between Asia and France. So you can stay in touch with me through my email, through my WeChat, also on WhatsApp, also on LinkedIn. I always show my social media digital touch points. I will not use, but on the topic of collaborations, I made many videos, short educational videos published on Chinese social media platform Bilibili, a short video platform, on Louboutin, on Gucci, on Dior collaborations, to name a few. So you can relate to them. I often repost these videos on my LinkedIn account, so you can also find them here. Also on Redbook. And last but not least, I have many masterclasses recorded and available on ESSEC YouTube account. Voilà. These sources always more or less the same when it comes to luxury and luxury in China. Yeah, so let me start directly with this interesting concept of collaboration. You know, collaboration is really a black box. It can include a lot of things, and the way I look at it is really 360 degree. So I go beyond the traditional scope of collaborations. First of all, as you probably know, it is really a kind of cultural trend, recent and rising cultural trend linked with, for instance, the rise of experiential lifestyle branding around new culture, subculture, think streetwear, but not only. And collaborations serve really multiple purposes, as we will see in this workshop. And they can strengthen brands' value, obviously. Alors, my definition of collaborations, marketing collaborations, is quite open. That's why I talk about collaboration 360 degrees. For me, you can consider a collaboration, a marketing collaboration, whenever a brand, a luxury brand, but not necessarily, associates itself with another brand, or anything that can be looked at as a brand. So an individual, an entity, anything. And this association is not only visible on the market, but it can impact the consumer's perception, knowledge, appreciation of the brand. That's my definition of collaboration at large, marketing collaboration. So it includes, for instance, pure industrial back office collaborations, which are not visible or not relevant to consumers. Alors, there is an interesting question in my courses. I often talk about licensing, which first remains a business model for many luxury brands and is also a way for luxury brands to develop into new categories and to do kind of lifestyle extensions. Alors, you know, are licensing deals part of marketing collaborations? It's a really interesting question, and you can ask yourself this question differently. Does it matter to the final consumers, for instance, that Chanel eyewear is done by Luxottica, or that YSL beauty products are made by L'Oreal, made and distributed, or Gucci fragrances by Coty? Does it matter? I let you appreciate this. I think it should matter, but it's not always obvious. So we can think licensing can also be part of marketing collaboration to a certain extent. The thing also I always emphasize is that collaboration, my definition, it's not necessarily about contractual collaboration. It's more a mindset. So a lot of collaborations can be explicit or implicit, direct or indirect, active or passive even. And I show you below a few examples. Peninsula Hotels have a long history with Rolls-Royce because the Kaduri family knew the Rolls-Royce family in the UK, and they were definitely passionate about these British cars, but there was never a real official co-branding element between the two, okay? And it's the same with L'Occitane and the region of Provence, or with Place Vendôme and jewelry brand. And this is an interesting case. I show you here a jewelry brand belongs to Kering, Qilin, which is born in Hong Kong and today is trying to grow internationally. As a jewelry brand, they wanted to have a store Place Vendôme, and you can see it as a kind of soft collaboration, the association between Qilin and Place Vendôme. But at the same time, they become neighbors to Van Cleef & Arpels, Chanel, Cartier, all the jewelry brand. And this is an indirect effect of this association with Place Vendôme. It's also an association with all the established luxury brand. So you see, we can also look at it in this way. Alors, what can be the other entity? If you look at collaboration 360 degree, it is really where I think I innovate a little bit in my way of thinking. So brands can collaborate with other brands. These other brands can be sports. We see this a lot, of course, streetwear, fast fashion. They can be luxury brand or even mass market brands sometimes. They can be brands from the same countries, or we'll see more and more Western luxury brand collaborating now with Chinese brands and vice versa. And you can also collaborate with individuals. This is a very interesting element, actually, around the founders, the brand heroes, sometimes shareholders that can be key opinion shareholders, fans, KOCs, key opinion clients. And in this caption, I would also put artists, architects, designers, and of course, the brand's KOLs in China, and even now, virtual idols. I put them in the individual category. You can collaborate with retailers at different level, even with marketplaces online. Then there can be purely digital collaboration, of course, with social media platforms, with digital artists now around NFTs, with NFT marketplaces, with video games, of course, that relates to the digital collaborations. Events can be extremely attractive to brands and designers, whether it's fashion weeks, trade fair, prizes. Think about LVMH Fashion Prize. Think about festivals, celebrations, okay? Then places, like I showed you with the Place Vendôme, it can be a luxury street, it can be a mall, it can be a city, it can be even a country. By opening your first store in a specific country, it's a kind of association. In certain categories of brand, wine and spirit, cosmetic, food and beverage, you have a lot of soft collaboration with elements of nature. It's kind of fascinating. Flowers, ingredients, or places. Again, some brands collaborate with history, either historical heroes, legends, monuments, or specific centuries. Sports is a growing category on its side itself, and it can be a sports category, sport event, champions, equipment. And finally, very important, arts and culture. All kinds of art, painting, music. You see Krug developing a soft collaboration with music to enhance the creation process of a champagne, like, you know, and you create a piece of music. It can be artistic period, it can be subcultures, art auction houses. So you see, for a marketing team, there is a huge today possibility in terms of thinking 360 degrees for collaboration. Alors, collaborations can be specific to certain elements of the brand value chain. At LVMH, they talk about co-branding for collaboration around product design, product development, okay? Then there can be marketing alliances, there can be distribution partnerships. So you see here, I kind of show the value chain of a brand, and collaboration can focus on certain elements, or they can cover the entire value chain. When you have a permanent collaboration like Stella McCartney and Adidas, or Y3, Adidas and Yamamoto, it's a collaboration where both partners share roles across the entire value chain because they create basically a brand together. An illustration, and I told you I did several videos on Louboutin. It's an interesting case because, first of all, Christian Louboutin is very difficult on collaboration. He only collaborates when it makes sense to him, when it relates to his personal taste, interest, values. So all these collaborations are really strongly linked with the DNA of Louboutin, the personality of the founder. And most of them, I mean, you have collaboration that target very, very different elements, including promotion. I remember having brought a group of Chinese CEOs to attend a Crazy Horse to attend a show at the Crazy Horse in Paris, which is a kind of very interesting place. And it explains how Louboutin initially connected with the world of musical and dancers. Okay, voilà. Alors, when I look at collaboration 360 degree, I also sometimes explain that when you create a brand and you are looking for a brand concept, you can also think in terms of collaboration, association, to develop the initial brand concept and maybe enhance its uniqueness. I will give you a few examples. They are all, they all would require an entire workshop, so I can only just mention them. But when you see Acqua di Parma, you can understand what's behind, or Grey Goose, which initially wanted to create the best tasting vodka by making it distilled in France and connecting with the cognac region and the best French bread, mineral water, right? La Prairie with the famous Montreux Clinic, L'Occitane and the Provence, l'Europiana and Vicusa, this beautiful animal for one of its cashmere. And even I show you a case which is not so famous, but Tory Burch, when she launched a sport line, she decided to associate this sports line with a period, which is the 70s, and tennis in particular, a sport called tennis, and tennis icons from the 70s, also with a movie that connected the spirit of the 70s. So it's a form of collaboration. And last but not least, you can also think about collaborating with what I call the brand heroes. Can be the founders, can be the designers. So we have obviously the usual suspects, Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, so many leveraged on the founder's life. So it's never-ending storytelling. It continued recently for Christian Dior with his house in the south of France called Château de la Colnoire. And you have his family house in Granville. So this is a form of collaboration association. You can also collaborate with the hero clients. Pierre Balmain, when Olivier Roustin managed to create this so-called Pierre Balmain army in the US around LA and Hollywood, that really made the brand recognizable, identifiable. And Richard Mille, in a different way, revisited sports collaboration by collaborating directly with the sports champions in different categories. I mean, creating watches with complication that could be made for these hero clients. So very interesting cases. And there is another case I wanted to show you quickly. It's how you use your own history and the heroes of the brand in the brand history. It's a form of collaboration, again, soft collaboration. It creates storytelling. And a brand I know quite well, I follow them and we work together, the Macallan. They did recently an amazing collaboration with one of their heroes, a woman who played a key role in the development of Macallan in its history. And they even directed a short movie to connect this great woman with the Macallan brand around the 1926 limited edition whiskey that broke a world record at Christie's. So it was, again, a kind of glorifying the brand hero. In fact, you can even think about collaboration by revisiting the way brands partner with their suppliers or their retailers. With their suppliers, you don't always need to buy and own all your suppliers and totally control your supply chain in a dominant way, like big groups are doing. In Italy, you have the Italian fashion pipeline, where a lot of Italian fashion brands, independent competitors, they still share on purpose the same network of suppliers, small workshops. And it's not an official collaboration, but fundamentally they contribute at maintaining this know-how by having this kind of soft collaboration approach. And Chanel, with Paraffection, putting together all these small workshops that contribute to creating different accessories in haute couture collection, they also revisited in a way the concept of collaborations with suppliers. So the topic is quite rich, but we will go back to more traditional marketing collaboration, and I will now share with you why and how luxury brands use and leverage more and more on collaborations. So first of all, what are the main objectives? Why do luxury brands develop more and more marketing collaborations? I think, and this is really at the heart of my courses. So first of all, it's a branding tool. So luxury brands use collaboration to enhance their uniqueness, represented by their DNA and codes, develop storytelling through these collaborations, and also build what I call their cultural narrative or their cultural equity, which is more and more important. And collaborations enable them to enlarge and strengthen this cultural equity. So here, without going into details, collaborations are really a luxury brand management tool. And when I say this, one example comes to my mind. It's an amazing brand from Rémy Martin called Louis XIII, which is composed of eau de vie from Grand Champagne with up to 100 years old. And they did several collaborations to really enhance their DNA, their values. Louis XIII, it's a matter of time, heritage, know-how. And they did, for instance, l'Odyssée d'un Roi with Hermès, Saint Louis, and Puy-Forcat, creating a very limited edition Louis XIII in a beautiful, obviously, distiller, and with Saint Louis glasses. Puy-Forcat was involved. Hermès did the trunk. And even more interestingly, I think they celebrated the importance of time with this campaign, Think 100 Years Ahead. And for this, they collaborated with John Malkovich to create a movie, the movie that you will never see. It will be released in 100 years, to convey this idea that it takes 100 years to craft a bottle of Louis XIII. So the craftsmen who started creating the eau de vie 100 years ago, they will not be able to see the Louis XIII 100 years later. And in that same spirit, they asked Pharrell Williams to create a song for the next 100 years. So these collaborations are really about reinforcing, as you can see, the DNA of the brand. But of course, luxury brands are also facing many challenges, can be opportunities, and collaborations are also often critical for them to deal with these marketing challenges or opportunities. And there are like four. I have to restrict myself today, so I decided to focus on four elements where collaborations are often very useful. The first one is to support brand lifestyle extensions and what we call also sometimes experiential crossover. So you probably have seen this before. It's adapted from the BCG report. it shows one important reality, the evolution of luxury from ownership to, from having to being, from ownership to experience. And it puts together more and more a lot of different luxury sectors. The personal luxury goods we are often focusing on, but also luxury hospitality, luxury cars, and a lot of other experiential sectors where today luxury brands like to grow, extend, or at least cross over. And I think on this list, there are even some categories missing. Personally, I would like to also see luxury real estate, even if it's partially comes together with hospitality. We could see luxury clinics. We could even see private banking, private clubs, luxury education, luxury tourism, luxury destinations. So all this is obviously very interesting nowadays, and many luxury brands would like to at least cross over. And this is obviously what's behind some M&A activity. For instance, the LVMH acquisition of Belmond, its creation of Cheval Blanc hotels, and some other developments that I'm going to show you. So when luxury brands obviously would like to become more lifestyle, and I will start with the case of Bulgari, which moved progressively over the years from jewelry to watchmaking, then made the luxury brand more fashion luxury with beauty and some bags and textile products, and ultimately more lifestyle with hotel, restaurants, and residences. This evolution was made to a large extent in-house. So there was not always a need for collaboration. Luxury brands like to control. So as far as luxury and fashion categories were concerned, Bulgari could achieve it in-house. But when they decided to cross a kind of red line, which is to really go experiential with Bulgari Hotel, they knew it was risky, and they needed a partner. So they chose at that moment one of the biggest hotel company, Marriott, its luxury division, and technically it's a joint venture. So this is why you see now on the Marriott website, Bulgari next to other Marriott luxury hotel brands. But this association enables Bulgari to focus on design, a lifestyle element, food and restaurants, and Marriott to bring through the JV all its knowledge of operations, and also with the fact that it's now part of Marriott Group, the benefit of all Marriott loyalty clients through the Bonvoy loyalty program, and obviously also the help in terms of reservation and marketing. But Bulgari also wanted to emphasize its fashion legitimacy without becoming a fashion brand. And they did several, not too many, but several quite successful collaboration with fashion brands, fashion designers. You can see here Nicolas Kirkwood. There was before Alexander Wang. There has been Marie Katrantzou, and also with the architects Zaha Hadid, also with Dom Perignon. So this enabled Bulgari to cross over these other categories, adding some lifestyle fashion element. But at the same time, all this collaboration closely related to Bulgari DNA and codes, and often to its iconic products like the Serpenti. Okay, voilà. Alors, we can look at many cases. Dior is, of course, today extremely dynamic after having been for many years very careful. For the past 10 years, they opened up a lot in terms of collaboration, including crossover, lifestyle crossover. I don't need to remind you about the new Dior Maison, which brings together a store, a gallery, but also a restaurant with a chef, Jean Humbert, a pastry store, gardens by famous Peter Wirth, and of course, Peter Marino for the global architecture. Collaboration with hotels. Dior is more and more creating pop-up in hotels or sometimes decorating suites like at the St. Regis, New York. But they are also now leveraging on Belmont, which is a sister company within LVMH. So recently they had this kind of Dior pop-up, Dior garden at the Belmont Splendido Hotel. And it was around a specific collection launched by Dior, beautiful hotel, Belmont in Portofino, or even with Rosewood Hotel in Miramar Beach Luxury Hotel Rosewood in California with Dior Riviera pop-up. This is one of the latest cruise collection made by Maria Grazia Ciurli. Of course, next to Dior headquarters, the Plaza Athénée has a Dior Beauty Institute. So this is interesting. And I cannot help reminding you that with Cheval Blanc, it's a case I know very well, LVMH not only made a crossover between one of the most famous Saint-Emilion wine owned by LVMH and today a new luxury hotel resort brand, but through Cheval Blanc, it's like LVMH creates a showroom for all LVMH brands that can participate in enhancing the luxury experience of the guest. So the wine is present with the 1947 restaurant, 3-star Michelin restaurant. 1947 was a millésime of Cheval Blanc. And depending the Cheval Blanc resort, you may have a Guerlain Spa or Dior Spa in Paris. Depending the locations, you may have Fendi, Dior, pop-up stores. In Courchevel, you have a Louis Vuitton permanent store. They may offer the guests the Berluti shoe shining service, having dinners organized around Dom Pérignon and Krug. Interesting case of multi-collaborations. Fendi developed initially a lifestyle extension into furniture, like Armani, like Trussardi, like other brands, but they really wanted to make this furniture convey a lifestyle, so connect with residential and hospitality environment. They thought they need a partner, so they partnered with an Italian company called Luxury Living, which is able to really commercialize a lot of solutions to have a luxury house, a luxury apartment, totally decorated around Fendi Casa. And now they partner with real estate developers to develop Fendi residences. So you can live in Miami in a Fendi residence, totally branded Fendi and furnished with Fendi as well, if you wish. And the same now in Scottsdale, Arizona. Audemars Piguet, to show you a brand from another sector, Audemars Piguet has created recently a museum and a hotel. So it's more something they did internally to create something more experiential when VIP clients visit their manufacture at Le Brassus, but they didn't limit themselves to that because they want probably to enhance the Swissness of the brand. They also did, and I liked it very much, a collaboration with White Pod. It's a concept of ultra luxury private pods in the mountain, this one facing Dent du Midi. And here they design a pod with a multi-sensory experience. So it's not about selling any Audemars Piguet watch. It's more about showing how Audemars Piguet can imagine the concept of a kind of meditation hub with its brand values. Voilà, they called it the cardiac coherence. It's around a watchmaking concept, but it's a very interesting way to bring it to life in a way. Okay, so second category, luxury brands. Bernard Arnault keeps saying it. It's all about their creativity. All about innovating on tradition, bringing creativity and modernity. So for this, even if they try to get the best designers, as you probably know, being a designer, a creative director for a luxury brand is a lot of pressure. And some cannot, last forever. They have so much pressure. So even this great creative director needs collaborations to enhance the perceived creativity of the brand. And Louis Vuitton was one of the brands which pioneered into that at the time of Marc Jacobs and Takashi Murakami. But now many luxury brands follow, all of them more or less at certain stage. So first, it's about co-branding. So it's about creating in collaboration with a designer, an artist, a capsule collection often, okay? So it's on the co-branding side, but it can also be about creating branded space in art fairs. You all heard about Art Basel, which is now also in Miami, in Hong Kong, in Paris. It can also be about how big brands leverage on museums or art foundations. And last but not least, it's about also commissioning often avant-garde artists, avant-garde because they bring this kind of modernity, transgression that luxury brands look after to constantly innovate on tradition. And they can partner with contemporary artists who will display some artworks specifically for luxury brands in their flagship stores. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Chanel, all do that. So LVMH, I think, is probably one of the biggest player in this kind of collaborations because it was initially introduced by Louis Vuitton, and then Dior followed, and many other LVMH brands followed. After the acquisition of Tiffany, it was also interesting how they brought Jay-Z into the equation with Beyonce. Many things happened through LVMH connections with Kanye West, with Virgil Abloh initially. So you can see here a number of artists who collaborated with different LVMH luxury brands. The same could apply to some Kering brands, to a lesser extent to other brands from Prada to Ferragamo and Valentino. Alors, third interesting opportunity for luxury brand is to use collaboration to stay relevant. You cannot ignore the fact that the future of luxury, especially in Asia, is largely in the hands of millennials and Gen Z, in the future, Gen Alpha. And for this reason, because the clientele, honestly, in Europe, in America, from luxury brands, used to be not so young. So they need to at least try to make their brand relevant to younger consumers, refresh dream factors, even for existing consumers. Alors, for this, it's really about embracing short new cultural trends like rap, hip hop, which is partially linked with streetwear. And at LVMH, they did it through the hiring of creative directors who have often a streetwear initial background. If I had shown this slide 20 years ago, I think everyone would have thought that this is impossible. It happened, and today it's almost normal. And the latest, I think it was a great case, was how Kenzo, through Kim Jones, was able to get closer to Nigo and bring Nigo to become, after Kenzo passed away and other designers replaced him, to bring back a little bit the initial Japanese cultural roots of Kenzo. At the same time, bringing that streetwear culture. Latest case being Pharrell Williams with Louis Vuitton. And this often facilitates the developments of collaborations, product collaborations, often around capsule collection with streetwear brands or with other streetwear designers. I'm thinking, for instance, of Hiroshi Fujiwara, a Japanese streetwear designer. I did a video on him as well, who, through Kim Jones, was approached by Louis Vuitton and collaborated with Louis Vuitton through his brand, Fragment Design. So here, it's really interesting how the fact that a group like LVMH has created this collaboration with a high number of influential streetwear figures facilitated later on the approach of doing collaboration with streetwear brands. It's not the only reason, but it helped. Voilà. And last, on this part, I wanted to show you, and we're going to move now to Asia and China, how luxury brands are also using collaborations to engage with Chinese Gen Z, and also what we call Chinese cultural resonators. It's a new category of luxury consumers in China who put more and more emphasis on culture and are probably expecting luxury brands to not only develop their cultural equity, but also relate to Chinese culture. So here it's interesting because this relatively recent priority has seen the emergence of new types of collaborations, particularly in China, around certain lifestyle, sports, outdoors categories or activities. And this involved, for the first time recently, collaboration with Chinese brands and more Chinese artists. Also, it's part of what I call localization, some experiential retail initiative in China, which can be a little bit distinct from what the brands are doing in the rest of the world. And of course, collaboration with Chinese young KOLs. So let me show you a few examples. First of all, let me remind you what are the important trends that today influence Gen Z and young millennials in China. And I have seen it really happening in the past 10 years when I was living in Beijing. The development of outdoor activities with a focus on adventure, the sports competition culture, the running craze, the fitness craze, and of course, the streetwear craze. So, you know, outside of this interest of young people in China, in nature, there is this interesting new concept of glamping, glamour and camping, or RVing, visiting the nature with recreational vehicles. And obviously, we will see that some luxury brands have tried to talk to Chinese Gen Z by showing their understanding and appreciation for this new lifestyle. So, plus, before I show you some cases, the rising importance of sports, it really started with the Beijing Olympics, Summer Olympics, but recently we had the Tokyo Summer Olympics, where a lot of Chinese stars performed, and this gave Chinese citizens a sense of pride and more interest in certain sports, and also admiring some new stars, which are sports champions. And of course, recently, as you may recall, the Beijing Winter Olympics, which brought a lot more interest, passion even for winter sports, for ski, and so also the emergence of extremely successful champions. For instance, Eileen Gu, everyone knows, who has already been partnering with many brands before and after that, but also obviously with Chinese brands. So now we start to see some of these new influencers, sport champion, being shared by Western luxury brands and Chinese brands. Alors, to show you a few interesting cases in a place where I did myself ski in China, in Shanghai-shan, Dior created recently that beautiful pop-up sculpture that recalls a little bit its recent new maison in Paris, Avenue Montaigne, but they associated this ice sculpture with also a pop-up store where they showed their ski wear collection, Dior Alps, and with a coffee shop to make it lifestyle. So you see how here they are also showcasing products, but also how Dior can relate to your favorite sport if you enjoy ski there. Recently also, this was not limited to China, but in Maria Grazia Chiuri Cruise 2020 collection, there was this Dior Vibe capsule, which connected this time more with fitness. And it was a collaboration, by the way, with Italian, fitness and gym manufacturer Technogym, quite strong in China. And for this, they localized a little bit by having a pop-up store in one of the most famous luxury hotels recently opened in Sanya called Edition. Other brands did different things. Prada did two collaborations, events to show its understanding of Chinese customers' interest in nature, in gardening, in why not vegetables. And these collaborations were actually quite surprising, but showed also how, I don't think this would be necessarily so meaningful in Europe, but it was probably right to do it in China. And to show you different examples, much smaller house, Maison Martin Margiela, that belongs to OTB, Only the Brave, Diesel Group in Italy. They also collaborated with a coffee brand. Coffee pop-up stores, coffee are very popular in China. Young people like it. So they did two collaborations, and then a pop-up to promote a specific line of perfume products around coffee. Many creative pop-ups. It's funny that the first real Louis Vuitton restaurant, as far as I know, if I put aside Saint-Tropez, was opened by Louis Vuitton in Chengdu in the Ocean Taikoo Mall. Voilà. Alors, what is interesting is we start to see collaborations with Chinese artists. And this is linked with what I mentioned to you before, an expectation from Chinese cultural resonators to see also luxury brands showing their interest and appreciation for Chinese culture and modern Chinese artists. There are many cases. I chose one, which is nice, I think, because sometimes luxury brands need to be careful. There are cases of cultural appropriation that can raise actually a lot of criticism, so they must be very careful in the way they do it. And here, I think Loewe did quite well. They basically wanted to pay tribute to a tradition in Chinese porcelain history, which is the monochrome collection that date back from Qing dynasty and were known for their lack of ornamentation and monochrome colors. So, you have some artists today who are trying to bring back these old monochrome ceramics, and Loewe connected with one of them and called the Deng Shippings. And he helped, obviously, Loewe understand and develop this kind of collaboration where Loewe could show how its collection of bags was inspired by this monochrome collection of the Qing dynasty. And then they sponsored an exhibition where they smartly showcased both the porcelain and the Loewe products. Voilà. Alors, you have many cases. I show you a small brand, Diptyque, but quite popular, who also collaborated with an artist around a pop-up. So here you have two in one. You have a lifestyle pop-up with the addition of a Chinese artist collaboration around new products. Dior did a lot of things in China. And recently, in October last year, they brought back to Shanghai what they call their Dior Art and Dior exhibition. And there were multiple layers of collaborations here. First with the Shanghai West Bund Art and Design Fair, because they of course brought it to the Shanghai West Bund Art Center at the moment the West Bund Art Design Fair was ongoing. Then part of the exhibition was dedicated to the Lady Dior, As Seen By, where for many years Dior asked artists to revisit their Lady Dior bag. But here they emphasized the work of Chinese artists. Okay. And last but not least, they pioneered also in collaborating on social media with virtual fashion influencers. Some of the most famous virtual fashion idols, if you wish, in China, Ayayi and this boy group. So I think that was quite smart. Bon, you have others. Marni, again, collaborated with a Chinese artist, and this coincides with Marni opening its first flagship store in China. And there are many, many cases. Here you have Hennessy, or you have Hublot, who collaborated with artists, or even for beauty, Estée Lauder. Alors, collaboration with Chinese artists, yes. What about collaboration with Chinese brands? We start to see some cases, and it's also quite new. I can show you, for instance, 2 years ago, MAC Cosmetics from Estée Lauder Group collaborated with Li-Ning. We're going to talk about Li-Ning soon, around a fashion show organized by Li-Ning in a very popular place in China, Donghuan, full of history connected with the Silk Road. And basically, it was primarily a Li-Ning event, but MAC Cosmetics connected with it by offering the fashion show's makeup and creating a small capsule collection for this purpose. Estée Lauder also recently collaborated with an upcoming Chinese designer, Shushu Tong. I will talk briefly about them soon. So we start to see association of Western brands and Chinese brands, which is probably something that will develop. So time for me now to show you how Chinese brands are also leveraging on collaborations. I think they learned very fast. So first, what is at stake here? I think the past 20 years have seen this amazing growth of the Chinese economy, and this has generated a lot of strong companies and brands, maybe more mass or mass premium. So I think it's the time now for what I call the premiumization of the Chinese economy and the rise of premium or premium luxury brands. Collaborations can help, definitely, for the same reasons they have been useful for luxury brands from the West. So I just share with you a bit what I believe. I think for the past 3 years, we entered an era which was really a historical opportunity for Chinese brands. In a way, the fact that Chinese consumers could not travel gave some additional advantage to Chinese brands, but it's purely here a coincidence. The trend of the premiumization of the Chinese economy is ongoing and is supported by many elements. I'm not here to talk about that because it would require also more time. About some people call it guoqiao, the rise of cultural confidence, national pride, which is quite present with Gen Z in China. So in which sectors, because I follow obviously a lot of Chinese brands, in which sectors do we see the rise of strong mass premium luxury brands? I just listed here some sectors or activity sectors, and certain brands that they're absolutely not comparable. Some are more mass, some are more premium, but there are brands which I have seen recently starting to use collaboration in different ways. And it would require an entire course to talk about it. So I will only show you a few cases that I think are already quite elaborate, okay? But these are all relatively interesting brands. They are not all new, but they are potentially leveraging more and more on collaboration. First, sports. I mean, it's absolutely clear that we have seen in the past 10 years the emergence of two very strong brands in China, or groups, which really compete in China now with the likes of Adidas and Nike. The first one is Li-Ning. Alors, Li-Ning, you probably know, was founded by the Prince of Gymnastics. He was himself a great gymnast in the 90s. And this brand has been strongly supported by the government. So it has advantage and disadvantage. It's a little bit like the window of China. They went through some ups and downs, but they did a lot of things. One was not so famous, but they collaborated with Aigle to enhance probably their apparel kind of outdoor legitimacy. And Aigle is a quite strong French outdoor brand. And actually through licensing and a joint venture, Li-Ning is now totally in charge of Aigle in China. Second, to get more legitimacy in basketball, they collaborated with famous basketball champion Dwayne Wade, and this has been ongoing. And it made a big noise in 2012 because he left Jordan for Li-Ning. They also used the support of Alibaba, which before COVID in 2018 financed a China Day at New York Fashion Week. And some Chinese brands, including Li-Ning, were selected by Alibaba and could gain awareness, so capitalizing on both Alibaba and New York Fashion Week. Li-Ning has done many collaborations. We don't have time, so I just show some of them to you. This is with a Tencent company, the Tencent League of Legends Professional League. There was a collaboration with X-Large, which is an American, if I'm not mistaken, streetwear brand. There was one with a designer who used to be at Yves Saint Laurent, but now has his own brand, Stefano Pilati, and many, many other collaborations. Li-Ning has done a lot of things. We can discuss if we look in the details, but you can see that they are already involved and share now with other Western sports brand, collaboration with Disney, for instance, but they also did a lot of Chinese collaboration, like Genki Forest for wine and spirit, or Hongqi car, etc. Another case interesting is Anta. Anta is the second new star in the Chinese sports category. Very different from my perspective from Li-Ning. It's more business driven. So Chinese consumers may like one or the other. But Anta also did many collaborations, first with the Olympics, being chosen many times by the Chinese Olympic Committee. Then they made acquisitions. And these acquisitions also enabled them to learn from Western sports brand and to maybe give more technical sports or sometimes outdoor legitimacy to Anta. And today, Anta has three main brands. One is Anta, one is Fila. They own the Fila brand for China markets. And one is the rights for Descent, the Japanese ski equipment brand, for which they also secured the license right through a JV. So, but they also acquired some smaller brands, which are very famous in the West, like Arc'teryx, like Solomon, like Wilson, and they are doing some interesting work on them. So I will show you two cases. This is to show you that hospitality is something that is quite relevant for many brands that want to convey more lifestyle element. So here for Anta, for Fila, Anta approach Hyatt. Hyatt has a lifestyle brand called Joie de Vivre, which they acquired, an American brand. And they are working now on opening the first Fila house. It's a hotel, which will be managed by Joie de Vivre by Hyatt, where Chinese consumers will be able to connect with a kind of lifestyle around Fila in China. Another case which is interesting is Arc'teryx, on which Anta is putting a lot of focus at the moment. And here they did a collaboration I really like with an upcoming Chinese resort luxury brand, Zongzam from Yunnan. Very interesting case. So Arc'teryx connected with them, but they also did internal collaboration with Salomon, but also external with Jill Sander, with Beams, and with Palace. I will focus 1 second on, and they also opened a pop-up store in the same place where Dior opened its pop-up store at Changbaishan. And as far as the collaboration with Songstam is concerned, it's a company I really like and I follow because I stayed in one of their hotels. Initially, it was branded by Accor, M Gallery, but now the founder has totally rebranded everything under this new brand. And it's really an upcoming luxury resort brand with a very strong DNA around Tibetan culture that also, is spread over Yunnan. And all these hotels are closely connected, and this can lead to a lot of collaboration. So with Arc'teryx, it was first because Arc'teryx also wanted to probably get closer to outdoor but Tibetan culture. So they made a fashion show in a place called Shangri-La, where Songstam has a beautiful resort. This is the one where I stayed. And then they emphasized this collaboration with stores, Arc'teryx stores located in 2 Songstam hotels. Voilà. Quickly, another interesting category is streetwear. So, streetwear is really growing in China with its own cultural background. It came from Hong Kong initially, partially with Hypebeast, the platform, and Edison Chen. But now you start to see some niche streetwear brands developing. They are not mainstream yet, but they are very creative, and they are definitely leveraging on collaboration. And you see here some great Western names, because Random Events partnered with Reebok, Puma, Dickies, and New Balance, and recently Lee Jeans. You have Roaring Wild, another case with also Puma, Adidas, Vans collaborations. And you have others, all upcoming. And you see that they are definitely leveraging a lot on collaboration and find Western brands, but not only, interested in collaborating with them. We can see something probably win-win here, because this Chinese brand, or this Western sports brand, want to attract maybe Chinese young consumers, and this collaboration could help them. At the same time, it gives additional popularity to these niche streetwear brands. Last but not least, we have some really interesting case of Chinese fashion designers. And it took time, but today they start to really grow, because there is more and more a favorable ecosystem in China. I have seen it coming slowly but surely. And I will not talk too much about the ecosystem, but I will show you one case study, but I will show you three cases quickly. One, which is quite recent, so I could not, I think there are maybe even today or tomorrow presenting, he is presenting in Paris, Palais de Tokyo. So it's a very interesting case of a very young Chinese designers, Chen Peng. And you know, the question is always, even if you have talent, how can you grow as a designer in a world where no one really needs new designers? So of course, collaborations can help. Collaborations and prizes. So initially, he got connected with some awards and prizes by H&M and Walmart. And I think the big moment was in 2019, when he was granted the Wendy Yu Prize. So Wendy Yu is a rich Chinese woman who wants to help Chinese designers, basically. And this prize gave him not only a certain popularity, but also some real help, and enabled him to connect with Only the Brave, Paris Fashion Week. And then, you know, LVMH prize is very tricky. So even if you are a semi-finalist, you can leverage on that. So he was a semi-finalist, one of the first Chinese to be a semi-finalist of the LVMH Fashion Prize. This probably helped him connect with Moncler, where he was associated with House of Genius collaborations. And recently, through LVMH, with 24S, the e-commerce platform of LVMH around Le Bon Marché. He was also, he did some costumes for the some acts of the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. And now is the time for him to present at the Paris Fashion Week. So this is not enough, because there is no strong business yet, but definitely that is something that was useful. And I will talk to you more about Angel Chen in a minute. It will be almost the end of my presentation. But there is also Xu Shutong, I mentioned to you. So these two designers, they have a very unique and distinctive style, very girlish, but they stay loyal to it. And now they start to attract Western brands and Chinese brands. You see Peace Bird, Wive Min, which are two Chinese brands, Charles & Kay from Singapore. Alors, I will take 5 minutes, and I'm sure you will like it, to show you the case of Angel Chen, because it's probably the biggest case of collaborations right now in China, and for many Western luxury brands. So she's more or less same generation as Chen Peng, 1 year earlier, graduated from London Central St. Martin's School of Art Fashion Design. Alors, how do you grow as a designer? Again, you know, it's always something so mysterious. But for Angel Chen, it's quite obvious that she had some talent. So she was recognized while in school. And she probably drew the attention of different people. So this enabled her to express her creativity, be invited to several fashion week, and also start to attract Western brands to collaborate with her. So I will decode a little bit this case because I think it's worth learning from it. Alors, first, you imagine she's 22 years old. She graduated from St. Martin's. This lady, Tasha Liu, convinced her to come back to China because she really believed that there was a future for Chinese designers in China. So her first collaboration, so to speak, was with Tasha Liu, who had opened concept stores, fashion stores, Dongliang, in Beijing and later on Shanghai. And from this Shanghai concept store, Shanghai Fashion Week approached her, and she then created Labelhood, which is a kind of incubator platform associated with Shanghai Fashion Week. So Dongliang, Labelhood, Tasha Liu is the same thing. And they believed in Angel Chen and definitely helped her a lot at the beginning. So another very interesting moment was her first Shanghai fashion show, which was actually sponsored. Imagine, she's still only 23 years old, by this lady from Dongliang. So the fashion show is really Sony, which sponsored financially, and Dongliang, like introducing Angel Chen. Alors, it's better than nothing, because this enabled her to be on stage for the first time at the age of 23. And she said that this was, of course, a key moment for her. And then another interesting moment, 2 years later, she's still only 25, Benz had decided to sponsor her at the Milan Fashion Week. How it happened? Because Benz has also a program called International Exchange Program, where they want to sponsor some designers in collaboration with the Italian Chamber of Fashion. So Angel Chen was chosen by a jury. So, you know, part of it is definitely her talent, her creativity. Part of it is also the fact that she was smart and understood how to leverage on these different programs, award, prizes. So she was selected and she could be invited to the Milan Fashion Week. Another smart thing she did in 2018, while she was making a fashion show with Labelhood in Shanghai, she had the idea to ask the dancers of street dance of China, very popular at that moment, which also introduced streetwear to China, to perform, to dance on stage in her fashion show. And I think that was, again, a great sense of PR she had, because people talked about it. Then she was also invited by Alibaba, probably thanks to all that, next to Li Ning, to participate at the New York 2019 Fashion Week. All this helped her be identified as a creative designer by some prestigious retailers. And here we have a second dimension of collaboration, which is being stocked by famous influential retailers, Len Crawford, opening ceremony, Lorenzo, Luisa Villaroma, of course, Dongliang, China. And that is obviously where her business also started to grow, and her brand could be seen and purchased. She continued to understand the power of PR collaboration, TV shows in China, and appeared in one very popular show. I will not spell it well, so I will not pronounce it. but also in the rest of the world, she appeared, first Chinese designer to appear and made a buzz in this Netflix show, Next in Fashion. And that was also instrumental because obviously you understood already that Angel Chen, even if she is building her brand in China, she's based in Shanghai, she wants to be a kind of East meets West figure. And she wants to grow also and to be recognized internationally as a Chinese designer. So for this reason, you know, success continued to come. She was also the first Chinese designer to be selected by H&M for their designer collaborations. And this is obviously also something interesting in terms of money and in terms of popularity. It made some buzz. So now Angel Chen is really hot, and we can even wonder if this is not too much. And I will tell you what I think of that. But definitely she did great collaboration. You see big names, MAC Cosmetics, Canada Goose, Adidas, Marimekko, Johnny Walker, and Martell Cognac, Vivo in China, so mostly Western brands. And the danger could be that this is really about her. This is collaboration with brands and designers. So it's more her personality which is attractive to these brands because she's hot. What she will need to do if she wants to build a strong brand is to find a way to also strengthen her real brand. Because if she only, you know, does it in an easy way, leveraging on the fact that she's hot, leveraging on her attractive personality, one day that will disappear. Someone else will be more fresh, more young, more hot. So it's great, but at the same time, creating her brand is essential. Anyway, the very last collaboration she did, I will decode it for you quickly because I know the agency who did it, so I can bring you a little bit inside a collaboration. So this was with Nespresso for the Chinese New Year of the Rabbit. Let me introduce, to show you how it works, one company called Icon, which is French, but very present internationally, including in Hong Kong and Shanghai. It's basically an influencer marketing group and digital marketing agency. There are many like them, but they are really good, and they work a lot with luxury and premium brands. Their partner and CEO for Asia is a very good friend of mine. Julien Gobert-Molina, his picture is here, shared with me. I don't think he can be here today, but what they did, and I will show it to you quickly. So first of all, it's important to understand they are working for Nespresso. So Nespresso is their client, and they do different things in terms of social media branding, digital activation for Nespresso. They suggested to Nespresso, based on the fact that they were looking for an innovative collaboration around Chinese New Year, they proposed to them Angel Chen. Angel Chen is not, it was the first time actually they were working with her, but they identified her as the right person for Nespresso. Nespresso agreed, so they built the relationship, and as an agency, they totally created, of course, under the control and the agreement and the budget of Nespresso, the script for this collaboration, and they totally executed the collaboration. So I will, and then they were in charge, of course, of distributing the content and trying to create as much buzz as possible for Nespresso, and of course, at the same time for Angel Chen in different places in China and Asia. So they did 3 small videos, very short. I will show you the first one.
I was actually impressed by the artwork made of coffee capsule and Nespresso store. I love how Nespresso as a brand always made effort in sustainability for the coffee industry. And for this collaboration, we also use recycled and sustainable material, including recycled coffee bean bag. And this one is made of recycled polyester. Over here, it's handmade wool and also handmade lace and Chinese style jacquard. So Nespresso reminds me of the happy hour with my family. In the upcoming year, I wish I could stay with my family and drink more coffee and travel more places. And I wish everyone a happy 2023 Lunar New Year.
Voilà. So there were two other very short ones, more about Nespresso itself, but this you know. And the last one about a special Nespresso recipe they created for this occasion with injection. Voilà. So I think I don't know if you will agree with me, but the execution is quite nice. Everything is really under control in terms of image, and this is very important. So I will finish, but very shortly, with a few words on how I personally analyze collaboration using a toolbox and some very final recommendations. So first of all, for luxury brands, collaboration can have multiple purposes, but they should, in my opinion, always benefit the brand image and the brand business. In other words, it should not be one against the other. Okay, great collaborations for luxury brand have positive impact on both the brand image, very important, but also the brand business. Luxury is a business. Okay. Second, I always recommend luxury brands to first define precisely why they do collaborations. What are their objectives? And here, and my students often work on that, I list certain objectives that relate more to the brand image and certain objectives that relate more to the brand business. And I always recommend these objectives, again, are balanced. It's often the case, when Louis Vuitton collaborated with Supreme initially, in terms of business, they wanted to reach younger clients and bring them to their store. But in terms of image, they wanted their menswear to be more attractive to young people, associating it with streetwear. So here, for Louis Vuitton, there was a very clear common element between image and business. Then about the way collaborations are built, often it's an opportunity. It's not always obvious for brands or brands and designers to connect. People have an ego, so it's often a quite sensitive approach. That's why agencies can be useful to make the go-between. But I think, again, luxury brands should define clearly their objectives and then analyze, with the help of an agency, possibly, whether different brands or designers they want to collaborate with share the same values, the same DNA. So I talk about DNA compatibility, visual codes compatibility, making sure the collaboration is alternative enough, and then make sure that it supports the luxury brand's narrative, storytelling, is consistent with everything, is relatively easy to understand. Voilà. So with my students often use this kind of toolbox, analyzing the DNA of the brand, the two brands, what their codes have in common, and trying to justify if the whole process was logical. Last, very, very last, I think, because I've been working on that for so many years, and I even did some in the past, and I saw also some failures. So I think the 6 maybe keywords I would like to emphasize for luxury brands collaborations alternative for this reason, brand-centric for this reason, consistent, durable, because often luxury brands try to make collaborations durable to enhance their timelessness. Win-win, ideally, because luxury brands should keep a certain integrity. And I put it at the end, but I think it's absolutely essential. And it's still where many brands have some room for progression. It's the perfect quality of execution. Luxury brands are absolutely fanatic about details, and aesthetically, in terms of consistency, what really distinguishes the best luxury brands collaboration is the perfect quality of the execution. I have seen small brands, great ideas, but terrible execution. And Louis Vuitton, sometimes they have very simple ideas, not exceptional, but their execution is perfect. And that makes a big difference. Voila. So sorry for having been a bit long, but the topic, I think, justified it. And I'm here. If you have any questions, we can take a little time if you wish. Thank you very much for your attention today. So let me maybe check the Q&A. I think some people have, alors, Charlotte, Place Vendôme. Yes, in my opinion, you know, a location, Place Vendôme, Avenue Montaigne, you can say SKP in Beijing, it is an entity, it is a brand. And I often tell my students, everything can be seen as a brand. You are a brand, individuals are a brand. Voilà. You can be useful as a brand or not, depending whether you have some uniqueness. So brands can be seen everywhere. This is really my concept of collaboration, 360 degrees. Alors, I'm reading a question from Ozzy Hashizume from Japan, I guess. Shift away from focusing too much on KOL. Alors, yes, in particular in China, you know, KOLs, for some of you who may not know, it's the way we call influencers in China, key opinion leaders. Initially, it really started with celebrities, which were sort of KOLs with a lot of followers. Now, I think most agencies would not consider celebrities as KOLs. They are just celebrities, and many brands moved away from them. So I think KOLs are still important, but you know, you have very different kinds of KOLs. You have the local heroes, you have some micro KOLs. I am a KOL professor with 140,000 followers on Bilibili, but I'm not using it for any commercial purpose. So I think KOLs are still popular, but you know, it's not just KOLs, it's also designers, it's also artists, it's also new heroes like sports champions. Alors, Jacob, thank you, Jacob, for attending from California. In your opinion, do you think it is advantageous or disadvantageous for two similar companies to collaborate? Well, if we look at what Kering did recently between Gucci and Balenciaga, they must have thought about it. So I would say it's not necessarily a disadvantage. However, I think it really depends the story and the purpose and you know, what you want to achieve. I think just connecting two names, if there is not something, you know, especially young consumers today, I'm sure you all know that, they expect more and more their favorite luxury brands to have a social purpose. So I think today they also look at collaboration in this way. Does that make sense? What is the purpose? If it's purely commercial, they may not like it, okay? Alors, Lakshmi, what are a few suggestions for luxury personal care brands? Wow, you know, I like questions and I always try to answer straight out of my mind, but sometimes I need a little time. So Lakshmi, maybe you contact me by email. I will need to understand, to think about it a little to give you a good answer. Juan, what are recycled materials of so much interest to luxury brands? Alors, it's not directly about collaboration, but it could be. Definitely, I think there is a demand from young consumers in particular, thinking about sustainability, about purpose, for luxury brands to lead by example. And I often explain, luxury brands, they make our world more beautiful. They use a lot of inspiration from nature. Think about Hermès, beautiful nature. And I think for this reason, it is their moral obligation to be ahead in the protection of the nature, in the protection of our planet, in the circular economy, whatever. So I think this is why they should, for real, embrace, of course, why not collaborations around the circular economy, around sustainability, around recycled materials. Metrics for improving execution. Jacob, need to elaborate a little bit on my last slides, but I cannot do it like this. Alors, Ria was my student many, many years ago. So hello, Ria. Your question is, what other typologies of collaboration are besides marketing collabs? Well, first of all, I think my definition of marketing collab, if you go back to my initial slides, is very large, all right? So you have a lot here. And I asked a question about licensing, because licensing could be a little bit in between. It's a business model. It's often about manufacturing, product development, and distribution, but it's also about marketing. So, voilà. This being said, like I said, you may not name them marketing collaboration, but when you revisit the way a brand collaborates with its employees, with its suppliers, with its retailers, using in the future AI, using maybe blockchain, sharing data, there's a lot of things to investigate, as long as it doesn't go against data privacy protection. But there is a lot of opportunities around sharing data, as long as it is done in a certain way. Okay, I move on, Edward. Why do we see so poor collab with digital software products, platform, and game industry? I think we see quite a few, but if you think about luxury brands, they are maybe a little bit careful. However, between Gucci and Louis Vuitton or Dior, we have different approach. Gucci has been quite brave. And of course, if you look at sports brands, they are much more into it for legitimate reasons, because these game collaborations are more mainstream. So it's interesting that in terms of NFT, Louis Vuitton first collaboration was around a game that they created, Louis the game. So they decided to keep it totally under their control, because maybe they didn't want to make it too mainstream. Different approach here. Anonymous attendee, Professor, do you think the recent Tiffany and Nike partnership is a good match? Yeah, alors, it's always delicate for me to give an opinion totally straight. Also, I have not looked at it in very details. Globally, I think LVMH brought a lot of newness to Tiffany branding and marketing. The problem with Nike, alors, collaborations, for me, I said it very quickly, should be ideally alternative. It's not always possible, but, or at least luxury brands should try to find a way to make it a little bit unique. The problem is when you think about Adidas or Nike, even if you try to do it in a way that keeps a little bit something unique, in reality, it's impossible because Nike and Adidas have made hundreds of collaborations with all sorts of brands. So I would say, without looking at the details of this one, I think that the potential threat is definitely the lack of, the lack of alternativeness in the choice of the brand. However, for many purposes, Nike is obviously a great brand. So then we need to still look at the execution, and I will look at it. Sushanta, my former student as well, how will sustainability define future collaborations? Alors, like I said, for the moment, certain brands do with some real integrity, research, and into sustainable materials, recycling materials. I'm not an expert in that, but I see different things. Is it a case of collaboration? They could, but I think it's a little bit early because for the moment they are still more in the development phase. But at some point, collaborating officially with a certain entity around recycling materials, around sustainability, could be a smart strategy because it would strengthen both the brand image as a sustainable brand, and it could also strengthen the brand business. So why not? Yolanda, one of my great students from Fudan University. Your question is, do you think as China is open again this year, Chinese brand will lose some of the advantage they had? No, I think the Chinese brands, Chinese premium brands belong to Chinese culture, and more Western brands, I think, want and should in China continue to show their appreciation, understanding of Chinese culture. So Chinese culture is not only Chinese artists, but of course, if they want to collaborate with luxury brands, or if they want to at least continue to shine, I think it's really again about making sure that they strengthen their image, protect, enhance their integrity, take time. And as you know, we often discuss it. The time element is often a problem in China even for Chinese premium and luxury brands. The business environment is not necessarily giving them the time they need. That remains a challenge, but not different than before. Oh, Xin Chen, also my former ESSEC Grande École student. Do you think that long-term brand spokesperson still necessary? I think, spokesperson, ambassadors. I think you cannot. There is not only one way. We often say that luxury brands act as sheep. They tend to follow each other. So, as you know, certain brands have never used a spokesman, or at least have done it in a different way. Here, I always like to quote Hermes, which I have not used today. I've not talked about Hermes today, but it's one brand I often, use. They do things in their own way. And I think many brands should not do like Hermes, but they can learn from Hermes, do things in your own way. And that's something I often even recommend to my students in terms of their personal branding. The luxury of being yourself, do things in your own way. So you may use spokesperson or not, depending whether that is relevant for you. And I don't think there is here a black and white answer. Laurent, You showed a lot of successful brand collaboration. Failures, yes, of course, but you know, this would take a lot of time. For me, the failures often were due to poor execution or sometimes to a mismatch between the targeted audience and the choice of the brand they collaborated with. And I have two examples. I was very close a few years ago to the CEO of Lancel, which used to be a great French luxury brand, part of Richemont, but finally Richemont failed with Lancel, and that's a little sad. And Lancel, you know, was always struggling because when you are not a big brand, you cannot maybe put as much money on the table, but they had to do with the budget they had. And my friend, who was a CEO, did two collaborations, especially to develop the brand in Asia. One was with Salvatore Dali. So this was a great idea. He created a Daligram, secured the rights for a lot of Dali artworks, but it failed because of the poor quality of the execution. The videos, the window displays, they did things too fast and with not enough care. And I often say, if Louis Vuitton had done it, it would probably have been a success. And the second failure was with, only French people can understand, was with actress Brigitte Bardot, which is the French Marilyn Monroe. And again, on the paper, the idea was not bad because, you know, he managed to acquire the rights for her name and her filmography for a very small amount of money. He kind of seduced her. But again, you know, Lancel was kind of struggling because their market was French. So they had to do things that were relevant for the French clients. At the same time, they wanted to grow in Asia. And who knows Brigitte Bardot outside of France? So it also failed for that reason. Voilà. Persephone, at risk of becoming the next Pierre Cardin. Alors, you know, Pierre Cardin, in my courses on licensing, I always rehabilitate Pierre Cardin because, of course, times have changed. And I don't recommend anyone to apply the Pierre Cardin strategy today. But Pierre Cardin was a visionary, amazing designer. And this is why he's still remembered in China, because he did a lot of things before others. And he pushed licensing to a point that no one had thought of. And it made him and his brand at some point extremely famous, extremely rich, extremely successful. The problem is that you need to evolve. And at the end of his life, Pierre Cardin didn't want or didn't care about evolving. So the business model died a little bit with him. But, you know, this idea of building a brand through a licensing collaboration has been revisited in a more modern way by Tom Ford. And many people ignore the fact that Tom Ford started creating his own brand with Estée Lauder, then with Marcolin for eyewear, then with Hermenegildo Zegna for men's ready-to-wear. So in a way, he rehabilitated or revisited a little bit the Pierre Cardin model, but of course in a very different way with a lot more control and global licenses. Voilà. Echo Liu, should luxury brands pay heavy attention to metaverse solution? Alors, I did a masterclass on that. I think they are definitely keeping a very close eye on it, especially big brands like Kering, big groups like Kering, like Richemont, like LVMH. As you know, things will take time, and it's a little bit the same thing with NFTs. So then the reality is a little bit specific in China, so it's a complex topic. But if you want me to answer in short, I have no doubt that luxury brands will be in the metaverse at sooner or later. And some are starting to really work on it. They don't need to talk about it. NFTs, was a little bit different. But for sure, all this relates to blockchain, and blockchain today is a key element all luxury groups are working on, developing, as you may know, their own blockchain. Voilà. So in China, that will be a slightly different ecosystem, but it will be the same fundamentally. And here, in a couple of years, that will be the emergence of the alpha generation, who will be living and shopping maybe more than us in the metaverse. Dongni Wang, maybe I will take 2 more questions because time is really passing. Regional limitation influenced by cultural difference. Well, you know, I really believe today the concept of local culture is important, and at the same time is not what it used to be, because more and more cultural trends are international. And I would like to give you a very good example to illustrate this point. I follow an Asian brand, which I admire and quite appreciate, a luxury hotel brand from Hong Kong, developed by the Cheng family, Rosewood. And, you know, Rosewood was created in America, in Dallas, Texas, acquired by this huge Hong Kong company, Asian, Chinese people. And they are not trying to make it a Chinese or Asian or even East meets West brand. I think they are trying to make it really an international luxury hotel brand with this sense of the place. So wherever they open a hotel, they relate to the local culture. And it's very interesting because as opposed to Shangri-La, which was created 30 years ago at a time where they really wanted to push and bring back Asian, Chinese culture and hospitality, Rosewood, 30 years later, looks at it from a different angle. They don't want to seduce necessarily Asian or Chinese Gen Z or millennials. They want to seduce international Gen Z and millennials. Voilà. So maybe you can think in this way. Jessica, I showed very quickly the collaboration of Prada, and I was not in Shanghai at that time, but from my Chinese students, when I teach in Fudan, I had relatively good feedback. Some people criticize Prada, but again, you know, one thing I often explain, collaborations also have one purpose, is to make some noise and to draw people's attention. So if the collaboration has no smell and is quite, you know, easygoing, and not so many people notice it and no one really reacts, maybe it's not so good. Luxury brands should not be scared sometimes to, you know, initiate controversy. So I think it created some controversy, and that was not bad. Voilà. So many questions. Jill Sander and the woe. No, I cannot really comment on that one. Sorry. And Justin. Justin was my student in Swoofy. Great to see you, Justin. Whether Chinese luxury brand cooperation focus more on brand image building? No, I mean, you know, the difficulty is that building a luxury brand takes time. I often give the example of Elsa Schiaparelli in my courses, where the current owner, Diego de la Valle, you know, has already invested for more than 10 years, and he gives the brand time to grow. So I think this is, again, one issue sometimes in China, and I don't blame a Chinese brand. They have to obviously take into consideration the time pressure from investors. I think 10 years, it's definitely something people cannot even think of in China, where often 3 years is already long term. But still, if you want to build something strong and durable around luxury, premium luxury, I think you need to take time. And sometimes it is a no-go. And I tell some of my clients, if you cannot find the time, if you are not patient enough, maybe you should not try to develop a luxury or a premium luxury brand. Voilà. I will maybe finish on that. I saw that many of you stayed quite long. So great. And I think my dear colleague, Johnny, will take over quickly for a few very important words. Johnny, I leave it to you now.
Thank you so much, Professor Denis. It's a really resourceful and meaningful masterclass. We have learned a lot of things from you. And your class is always very popular. A lot of questions raised up from our attendance. Okay, so going to the end of this session, I just take a very quick sessions to introduce the program, which is our ISEC Global MBA program. If you want to hear more about knowledge or masterclass from Denis Morisset, probably can think about to join this MBA program. So Denis Morisset is our star professor to teaching this program. Okay, I'm going to share these presentation slides. Yeah, I think everybody can see my slides. Very quick one to just give you insights how the business school, how is the ISEC business school and how the program's running. If you have a more interesting questions, and feel free to approach to us. And you can just reply the registration email when you register for these events. Okay, so we talk about ISEC business school. We are top European business school, and the school have work school with the French rules. So according to the latest Financial Times ranking, we are number 8 best European business school. Also, where the business school have all the triple crown accreditation, which are the ACSB, AMBA, and the EQUIS. So just for information, in this world, only less than 1% of the university and the business school have all the triple crown accreditation. ISEC business school have a very long history. So our school established from 1907. So until now, we have a more than 115 years history. In the past 100 years, we have a lot of milestone. So for example, by 1997, which is 25 years ago, we are the first school in Europe to get ASSB accreditation out of America. And by 2005, we have set up the first overseas campus, which is in Singapore. So currently I'm based in Singapore campus. And latest by 2017, which is 5 years ago, we have set up our second overseas campus in Morocco. So currently, ISEC Business School have a 4 campus over the world, which 2 campus in France, Sergi and La Défense, 1 campus in Singapore, and 1 campus in Morocco. So most of our program, including bachelor degree, master degree, Global MBA, and EMBA program, is delivered in different campuses. So for example, for this Global MBA program, if you study luxury brand management track, you'll probably study in La Défense campus, and some modules will deliver in Sergi campus. And if you choose straight digital leadership track, you will have option 6 months spent in France and 6 months in Singapore campus. So it's very flexible and provide you the internal mobility possibility. Okay, this is a some profile about ISEC Business School. Currently, we have more than 6,600 students, which 34% are international students. So on campus, we have more than 100 student clubs. And talking about alumni networking, so we have more than 62,000 alumni over the world, which 400 currently work in Singapore, 1,300 more working Asia Pacific. So you can see majority working Europe. And our intern student coming from more than 100 countries. Talking about the gradation salary, so this is quite important, especially for the business school. So when we're talking about the rankings, actually most of the business school rankings reflect to the starting salary and the employment rate. So for our BBA students, the starting salary can be from 42,900 euros, and the master program can start from 45,100 euros. And for global MBA is higher because MBA is designed for the younger managers. So for the graduates, the starting salary can be from 97,800,000 USD dollars. Okay, so what makes the ISEC very unique? So when you study with the ISEC, you will really go through this learning by doing experience. So which most of our program, they have an internship or apprenticeship opportunity. Same as this Global MBA program, within the 1 year, also we are providing you 3 months internship opportunity, which you can apply your knowledge and skills in your workplaces. So back to this global MBA program, this is a highlight. So this is a 12-month full-time programs. Start date is every year, September. The teaching English, so the program is a 100% English program. The program delivered in 2 campuses, depends on the track. So for the luxury brand management track is delivered in France. And for digital leadership, you have an option to do 6 months in France, 6 months in Singapore, or you can do a whole 12 months in France. 3 months capstone project internship is compulsory in this program. Within the program, you also will visit 3 to 5 countries as a business trips. And the latest, they have providing more than 30 times company visit during the programs. So the program, beside the curriculum, they are focused on these 3 areas, which are the business trips. For digital leadership track, beside your France, Singapore study experience, you will also visit Amsterdam, Luxembourg, and London. For luxury brand management, yeah, it's more interesting. You will visit Italy, New York, Shanghai as a business trips. And beside that, also we have providing one-to-one mentorship program and a lot of professional talks. So we invite those business leaders from the industry come to the school to give the speech to our students. Okay, talking about the last part, which is the eligibility to apply for the global MBA program. So what kind of the profile we are looking for this global MBA program? As I mentioned, global MBA program is designed for the younger managers. So when you submit the application, you must be age 25 and above. You need to have at least 3 years working experience. And we are prefer candidates who has international enrollments. So either you have been studying overseas or you're working overseas. And probably you can work with the international company and deal with the foreigner clients. Bachelor degree is compulsory. The program also requires GMAT and GRE score, and we are request advanced level of English. So if your bachelor degree study through English, you can be waived on the IELTS or English test. But if your bachelor degree study not through English, you have to provide IELTS or TOEFL, these 2 kind of the English certificate to verify your English level. So talking about the class profile, which is average age around 30 with the 6 years working experience. Okay, lastly, about the tuition fees and the tracks offering. So lastly, we're all studying in France, digital leadership, France, stuff on France, and you have a 6 months option in Singapore. Tuition fee wise, which is we are charging 49,500 for the whole course fee. And also we are offering huge scholarship. So you can see from the right side, there have 8 types of scholarship you can apply, which is depends on your, when you submit the application, depends on GMAT, GPA score, depends on your international exposure, also your motivation of the program and future career objectives. So admission jury will go through your profile and interview you, then determine your scholarship when you admit for the programs. Okay, going to the last page. So please follow us through our social platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you want to follow Professor Denis, you can follow him through LinkedIn and also the Bilibili account and the WeChat. Lastly, if you want to inquiry more information about this program in terms of the entry requirements, course structure, and how to apply, you can apply. You can contact me. So my name is Johnny, and I'm the MBA recruiter based in Singapore campus. So if you are from China, you can use WeChat. You can scan this QR code, which is a link to our WeChat public account. You can get more information from there. Okay, going to end of the session. So I just want to highlight to you, a reminder to you. So the postgraduate festival is a 3 days event. So today is the first day, and for tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, we still have a 2-day session. So feel free to join us by start on the 7 p.m. And in the following 2 days, we have sessions talking about our master program and also the elective MBA program. Okay, thank you so much. And thanks for Professor Denis, a very wonderful session. And we hope to see you again. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.